When Germany invaded in 1941, the Soviet bomber force was a desperate collection of obsolete biplanes and untested new designs. Many would be slaughtered in the opening weeks, while others would evolve into unlikely legends. Let's begin with the obsolete machines that refuse to die. Polikarpov R5. The R5 was an ancient biplane from 1928, hopelessly outdated yet pressed into night harassment duty. Its fabric-covered wings and open cockpit made it laughably vulnerable in daylight. Tupolev TB3. The TB3 was a massive four-engine giant from the early 1930s, lumbering and obsolete but stubbornly used. Its corrugated metal skin and fixed landing gear belonged to another era entirely. Tupolev SB2. The SB2 had been a fast, modern bomber during the Spanish Civil War. By 1941, German fighters turned it into a turkey shoot during daylight operations. Ilyushin DB3. The DB3, later redesignated Il-4, became the backbone of Soviet long-range bombing throughout the war. Crews flew it on desperate raids deep into German territory despite inadequate fighter escort. Tupolev PE-8. The PE-8 was the Soviet Union's only four-engine heavy bomber, with just 79 built total. It famously bombed Berlin in 1941, though production priorities favored smaller, more practical designs. Yermolayev Yer-2. The Yer-2 was a promising long-range bomber with excellent performance characteristics. Factory evacuations and shifting priorities killed its production before it could prove itself. Continuing with the light bombers and ground attack machines that defined Soviet tactical aviation. Sukhoi Su-2. The Su-2 was a light bomber and reconnaissance hybrid with inadequate armor protection. German fighters and ground fire devastated its squadrons in the first months of war. Ilyushin Il-2 Shturmovik. The Il-2 became the most produced military aircraft in history, an armored flying tank. Its bathtub of steel protecting the engine and pilot made it nearly indestructible from below. Petlyakov P-2. The P-2 was the Soviet equivalent of the Mosquito, a fast and versatile dive bomber. It served on every front, from reconnaissance missions to pinpoint strikes against German armor. Tupolev Tu-2. The Tu-2 was an excellent medium bomber that arrived frustratingly late in the war. Had it entered service earlier, it might have transformed Soviet strategic bombing capability entirely. Arkhangelsky R-2. The R-2 was an attempt to convert the obsolete SB-2 into a dive bomber. The results were mediocre at best, unable to match purpose-built German designs. Polikarpov VIT-2. The VIT-2 was a heavy twin-engine fighter bomber experiment that failed spectacularly. Its complex design and poor performance doomed it before mass production could begin. Next up are the foreign bombers that filled critical gaps in Soviet production. American, British, and even captured German aircraft pressed into desperate service. Douglas A-20 Boston. The A-20 was the most numerous foreign bomber in Soviet service, with crews genuinely loving its reliability. American instruments and comfortable cockpits felt luxurious compared to Spartan Soviet designs. North American B-25 Mitchell. The B-25 served primarily in maritime strike roles against German shipping in the Baltic and Black Sea. Its heavy armament made it effective against both surface targets and coastal installations. Douglas C-47 Dakota. The C-47 was primarily a transport, yet Soviets frequently modified examples with bomb racks for supply drops. Its rugged construction survived horrific Eastern Front conditions that grounded more delicate machines. Consolidated B-24 Liberator. The B-24 saw limited Soviet use, mainly in shuttle bombing missions from Western Allied bases. Few crews trained on its complex systems before Germany's collapse ended the partnership. Handley Page Hampton. The Hampton arrived obsolete from Britain, relegated immediately to torpedo bombing, where its vulnerability mattered less. Crews tolerated, rather than appreciated, its cramped, poorly defended fuselage, moving to capture German bombers that the Soviets ironically turned against their former owners. Heinkel He-111. The He-111 was captured in significant numbers during rapid advances after Stalingrad. Soviet crews flew these distinctive machines in evaluation squadrons and occasionally against Wehrmacht positions. Junkers Ju-88. The Ju-88 was prized when captured intact, its speed making it valuable for reconnaissance conversions. Fast enough to evade Soviet fighters, it became doubly dangerous in Red Air Force hands. Dornier Do-17. The Do-17 appeared in small captured quantities, primarily used for technical evaluation purposes. Its obsolescence by 1943 meant most examples never saw combat under Soviet markings. Continuing with domestically built conversions and trainers desperately pressed into combat duty. Polikarpov Po-2. The Po-2 became legendary as the Night Witch's harassment bomber, a fabric-covered biplane that terrorized German troops. Its wooden construction flew too slowly for fighters to effectively intercept without stalling. Polikarpov U-2. The U-2 was the original designation before the Po-2 renaming honored designer Nikolai Polikarpov. Thousands of these ancient trainers dropped small bombs nightly, their sewing machine engines driving Germans mad. Tupolev MTB-2. The MTB-2 was a four-engine flying boat bomber designed for Black Sea operations against coastal targets. Its limited production and vulnerability to fighters restricted it to night missions. Beriev MBR-2. The MBR-2 was a small reconnaissance flying boat, occasionally modified to carry light bomb loads. Coastal patrol duties kept it away from heavily defended targets, where its fragility proved fatal. Next up are the specialized variants and attack bombers that evolved through brutal combat experience. Armored beasts for tank hunting, torpedo carriers for naval strikes, and improvised solutions for every battlefield. Problem. Ilyushin Il-2 single seat. The original Il-2 featured heavy frontal armor, but left the pilot's rear completely exposed to enemy fighters. Losses mounted catastrophically until crews screamed for modifications. Ilyushin Il-2M3. The Il-2M3 added a rear gunner position with a 12.7mm machine gun, solving the vulnerability crisis. This two-seat configuration became the definitive Sturmovik that survived to war's end. Ilyushin Il-2 Type 3. The Type 3 variant mounted devastating 37mm anti-tank cannons, capable of penetrating German armor from above. Each trigger pull sent shells straight through engine decks and turret roofs. Ilyushin Il-10. The Il-10 represented the final evolution, with a more powerful engine and refined aerodynamics. It arrived too late for major operations, but showed what the design could have been. Petlyakov Pe-2 dive bomber. The standard Pe-2 became the Soviet workhorse for precision strikes, its dive brakes screaming during attacks on bridges and rail yards. Crews called it responsive and forgiving despite demanding high-speed approaches. Petlyakov Pe-2FT. The Pe-2FT featured improved engines and frontline refinements based on combat feedback from thousands of sorties. Small modifications, better cockpit layout, reinforced tail, kept it competitive through 1945. Petlyakov Pe-3. The Pe-3 converted the bomber airframe into a heavy fighter with additional forward-firing cannons. Its performance disappointed against nimble German fighters, proving the conversion too compromised. Petlyakov Pe-2R. The Pe-2R stripped bombing equipment for cameras and additional fuel tanks, becoming a vital reconnaissance platform. Its speed kept it alive over heavily defended German positions, where slower aircraft perished. Continuing with the medium bomber variants that finally gave Soviets a world-class strike capability. Tupolev Tu-2S. The standard Tu-2 combined speed, defensive armament, and substantial bomb load into one exceptional package. Had it arrived in 1942 instead of 1944, it might have changed the air war entirely. Tupolev Tu-2D. The Tu-2D extended range with additional fuel tanks for deep penetration raids into German-held territory. Its performance rivaled American medium bombers while maintaining superior maneuverability. Tupolev Tu-2T. The Tu-2T adapted the airframe for torpedo strikes against German shipping in the Baltic Sea. naval crews appreciated its stability during low-altitude attack runs through intense flak, moving to specialized naval bombers that hunted convoys and warships across Soviet coastal waters. Ilyushin Il-4T. The Il-4T carried torpedoes instead of conventional bombs, its crews skimming waves to launch against German vessels. Coordinated attacks overwhelmed escort defenses through sheer numbers and determination. Yakovlev Yak-4. The Yak-4 was a light bomber failure with inadequate speed and poor handling characteristics. Brief frontline service exposed its fundamental design flaws before squadrons withdrew it permanently. Next up are the night harassment specialists, and experimental giants that defined the final chapter of Soviet bomber development. From wooden biplanes that refused obsolescence to massive four-engine prototypes that never escaped their blueprints. Polikarpov Po-2 Night Witches variant. The Po-2 became legendary in the hands of all-female 588th Night Bomber Regiment crews who cut their engines during attack runs. German troops heard only wind whistling through wooden struts before bombs exploded across their positions. Polikarpov R5S Night variant. The R5S received modified exhaust shrouds and muffled engines specifically for nocturnal harassment missions over German lines. Its ancient design proved nearly impossible for radar-equipped night fighters to detect or engage effectively. Polikarpov U-2VS military variant. The U-2VS designation represented factory-fresh combat versions with reinforced bomb racks and basic defensive armament. Production continued throughout the war, despite its hopelessly obsolete performance specifications by any conventional measure. Continuing with the experimental heavy bombers that represented Soviet ambitions beyond tactical battlefield support. Petlyakov P-8 detailed production. Only 79 P-8s ever rolled off assembly lines, each one a hand-built strategic bomber. Its pressurized cabin and 5 defensive turrets made it exceptional, yet factories prioritized thousands of simpler designs. Tupolev AN-T-42 prototype designation. The AN-T-42 represented Tupolev's original heavy bomber concept before military redesignation as TB-7, then PE-8. Its diesel engine experiments proved troublesome, forcing reversion to conventional radial power plants for operational aircraft. Yermolayev Yer-4 6-engine giant. The Yer-4 proposed 6 engines for transcontinental range bombing, deep into German industrial heartland. Prototype construction never progressed beyond wooden mock-ups before shifting priorities killed the ambitious project. Moving to desperate improvisations that transformed any available airframe into makeshift bombers. Lisanov Li-2 bomber conversion. The Li-2 was a license-built C-47 modified with bomb bay doors and defensive gun positions for supply dropping. Its transport origins made it vulnerable, yet indispensable for partisan resupply missions behind German lines. Tupolev TB-3 paratroop variant. The ancient TB-3 dropped entire companies of paratroopers during Dnieper River crossings, despite flak shredding its corrugated skin. Its cavernous fuselage accommodated loads no other Soviet aircraft could match, regardless of vulnerability. Grushin GR-1 transport conversion. The GR-1 adapted civilian transport airframes with improvised bomb racks welded beneath fuselages during desperate defensive fighting. Factory workers installed whatever equipment survived, retreating westward from advancing Wehrmacht forces. Polikarpov UTI-4 night bomber. The UTI-4 trainer received underwing bomb racks for nuisance raids when purpose-built bombers proved insufficient. Student pilots flew combat missions in aircraft designed for landing practice and basic navigation exercises. Tupolev Tu-4 reverse-engineered copy. The Tu-4 was a bolt-for-bolt copy of interned American B-29 superfortresses that arrived months too late. Soviet engineers measured every rivet, recreating Boeing's masterpiece through sheer determination and espionage. From obsolete biplanes that terrorized German positions to armored flying tanks and experimental giants that never flew, the Soviet bomber force survived through adaptation rather than sophistication, proving that Eastern Front brutality rewarded pragmatism over perfection every single time.